The atmosphere on the yacht was bustling, filled with all of Yin's classmates from the business department. That night, the graduation party was vibrant, accompanied by laughter, cheerful conversations, and thumping music that filled the air. The guests were dressed neatly, enjoying the dishes served on the long table. Some were already drunk, laughing too loudly, or dancing without a care in the world. Amid the joyful atmosphere, Yin stood near the drink table, her hand holding a melting mocktail. Her gaze occasionally flicked toward Bam Bam, her boyfriend, who was laughing with Mji. Mji, Bam Bam's childhood friend, seemed very comfortable talking to him, even occasionally touching his arm while smiling brightly. Yin wasn't the jealous type. She understood that Mji and Bam Bam had been friends since they were kids. However, there was something in the way Mji looked at Bam Bam that disturbed her. It wasn't just a gaze from an old friend, it was something more. As a fellow woman, Yin was sensitive enough to notice that. At first, Yin tried to ignore it. She smiled at her friends who invited her for a toast, trying to enjoy their last night as students. But every time her eyes unintentionally landed back on Bam Bam and Mji, her chest tightened. It wasn't just once that Mji seemed to try to get Bam Bam's attention in subtle yet obvious ways. Little touches, slightly exaggerated jokes, even the way Mji occasionally glanced at Yin, as if trying to gauge her reaction. Yin, are you okay? Lisa, her classmate, snapped Yin out of her thoughts. Yin sighed and gave a small smile. I'm okay. Lisa followed Yin's gaze and immediately understood. If I were you, I'd have pulled him over here already. Yin chuckled softly, though the unease in her heart remained. I trust Bam Bam, she said, more to herself than anyone else. Lisa only shrugged, then went back to chatting with their other friends. Not long after, Bam Bam finally looked over and found Yin watching him. He smiled and raised his hand, gesturing for Yin to come closer, but before she could take a step, Mji had already pulled his arm, showing him something on her phone. At that moment, Yin realized something. She could keep being patient, but that didn't mean she would stay silent forever. And perhaps, she had finally come to understand, it wasn't Mji who was truly at fault. The real issue was, what kind of attitude should Bam Bam be showing? To calm her mind, now crowded with suspicion and uncontrollable emotion, Yin chose to step away from the crowd. She walked out of the yacht's interior, letting the ocean breeze wash over her face. The lights from the upper deck reflected on the calm surface of the water, creating a soothing view. Some of her classmates were also outside, sitting on benches or standing around making small talk. Yin greeted them with a small nod before standing alone by the railing, taking in the open sea with a deep breath. Not long after, from the corner of her eye, Yin saw Mji walking out alone. Her steps were casual, but deliberate, heading toward Yin's direction. Yin didn't care, assuming Mji was heading to the restroom, since the path passed right by where she was standing. And she was right. Mji walked past Yin. Their eyes met for a moment, but no greeting was exchanged, not even a smile. Usually, Mji would smile or wave, at least when Bam Bam was around. But tonight was different. It was as if an invisible wall stood between them, a cold war unspoken but clearly felt. Mji went into the restroom, and Yin turned her gaze back to the sea, trying to calm her uneasy heart. But the peace didn't last. As Mji stepped out of the restroom and passed Yin again, suddenly there was a loud commotion not far from them. Two classmates, Yuju and Rose, were running while laughing and shouting playfully. Clearly drunk, they stumbled as they chased each other and accidentally bumped into their friend Mina, who was also walking near. Yin and Mji, heading toward the same restroom. Chaos unfolded in seconds. Bodies collided, overlapping one another. Shouts of panic filled the air. Look out. Hey. Then, splash. A loud splash echoed as several bodies fell into the sea at once. People rushed to the edges of the deck, panicked. That's Yin. Mji too. Mina fell in, and Yuju. Rose is in there too. 5 people, including Yin, Mji, Mina, Yuju, and Rose, were now in the dark sea, struggling to stay afloat. Panic spread. Throw them life rings. Can anyone swim? Jump in, hurry. The commotion outside finally drew everyone inside to come rushing out. The sound of screams and splashing water sent waves of panic through the party. The music stopped. Lights were turned up to full brightness. Several male classmates quickly reacted, taking off their shoes and jackets, and preparing to dive into the sea to rescue the 5 girls. The yacht, which had been slowly cruising, came to a full stop. Crew members gave instructions, tossed life rings, and lowered emergency ladders. Everyone's focus was now on the rescue. In the cold water, Yin shivered, trying to stay afloat as her eyes searched for someone. And then she saw him, Bam Bam. He appeared at the edge of the deck, and without hesitation, dove into the sea. For a brief moment, Yin's heart warmed. He came. He'll save me, she whispered in her heart. Bam Bam, Yin called out, lifting her hand, trying to catch his attention. Bam Bam turned, and when his eyes met Yin's, she saw concern on his face. But then his mouth said, "Hold on, Yin. Minji's farther out." The world seemed to stop for Yin. She turned slowly, and yes, Minji had indeed fallen farther away. But Minji wasn't alone. Yuju and Rose were near her too. All three are still clustered together. But Bam Bam chose to reach for Minji first. Yin watched with her own eyes as Bam Bam swam toward Minji, pulled her close, and helped her toward the emergency ladder, even as Yin's own body was still floating, trembling in the cold water. His focus was unwavering, as if Minji was the only person in the sea that mattered. The sting wasn't just from the icy ocean, it was from the sharp realization that in a moment of crisis, she wasn't his first instinct. A few seconds later, Yin felt a strong hand grabbing her. It wasn't Bam Bam. When she turned her head, she saw someone looking at her seriously, eyes filled with concern. "You okay?" came a deep voice, firm but sincere. Yin froze. It was Jungkook, one of their classmates. And not just that, he was Bam Bam's rival. All this time, Yin and Bam Bam had kept their distance from Jungkook. He had a cold reputation, was too blunt, and always clashed with Bam Bam in everything. Even more so, based on what Bam Bam had once told her, Jungkook's family and Bam Bam's were enemies in business. In fact, more than just rivals, they were FOs. Their fathers were leaders of opposing mafia organizations, constantly trying to bring each other down and monopolize their power. But tonight, it was Jungkook who came for her boyfriend's rival, his family's enemy. But right now, Yin didn't care. Without thinking, Yin gripped Jungkook's arm tightly. He helped her swim slowly, keeping her body steady so she wouldn't sink until they reached the side of the yacht and the crew pulled them up one by one. Once on the deck, Yin collapsed into a sitting position, coughing and shivering. Her eyes searched for Bam Bam, and there he was, sitting next to Minji, holding her shoulders, wrapping her in a towel, making sure she was okay. Bam Bam didn't even realize that Yin had already been pulled up. Meanwhile, Jungkook sat beside Yin, quietly placing a towel over her shoulders. "Don't move too much. You swallowed a lot of water," Jungkook said softly. Yin turned to Jungkook, still shivering from the cold that pierced her bones. She nodded slowly and said weakly, "Thank you." Jungkook only responded with a brief murmur, as usual, expressionless, cold and indifferent, yet his actions were warmer than anything Yin had felt that night. She remained quiet, head down. Her body trembled, lips turning blue. Even with the towel draped over her shoulders, her hands were too stiff to dry herself. She could only sit there, letting the cold continue to bite at her skin. Jungkook glanced at her. It seemed he noticed she couldn't really move properly yet. Without saying a word, he moved closer and gently started drying Yin's hair with the edge of the towel. His movements weren't harsh, but they still carried that stiff, awkward vibe unique to him. After a few seconds, Jungkook stopped and said in a calm tone, "No point drying you off out here. You should take a warm shower. Then you'll actually start feeling better." Yin paused, then gave a small smile. What he said made perfect sense. She nodded. "Yeah, you're right." Jungkook looked at her briefly, then stood up and said, "I'm going inside now. You coming?" Without hesitation, Yin nodded. They walked into the yard, following the hallway toward the shower area. Inside, it was much calmer than the outside, which was still filled with panicked voices, coughing, and post-incident chaos. Just as Jungkook predicted, several bathrooms were still available. Most of their friends were still outside, drying off, searching for towels or calming themselves down after the commotion. Yin let out a breath, amazed by Jungkook's calmness and quick thinking. While everyone else was still panicking, he had quietly found the most logical solution. "You're pretty smart," Yin muttered to herself, but loud enough for Jungkook to hear. Jungkook glanced sideways and raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, unlike your boyfriend who was busy worrying about someone else first," he said with a cold, smug tone, typical of him, always blunt and never caring about how his words might affect others. But this time, for some reason, Yin didn't feel angry at all. Not like she usually did when Jungkook spoke carelessly. Not like those times he mocked or threw jabs at Bam Bam. Maybe it was because his words rang true. Maybe it was because tonight, Yin was too tired to deny anything. Or maybe, for the first time, the person who had always seemed like the enemy, Jungkook, was the only one who made her feel seen and saved. Yin fell silent. She didn't know what to say. But one thing was clear. She no longer felt as fragile as she did in the water. Whether it was the warm shower ahead, or Jungkook being here with her. At least now, she didn't feel alone. 1 hour later, Yin had finished showering. Her body felt much better, warm, clean, and no longer shivering. Before completely leaving the hallway, she glanced back. The scene there was now quite packed. Some of her classmates were lined up in front of the bathroom doors, rubbing their hands together or softly complaining about the cold as they waited for their turn. Unable to hold back a small smile, Yin thought to herself, good thing I followed Jungkook earlier and came straight here. She stepped into one of the rooms on the yacht, which now felt much calmer than before. Soft music was playing again, though not as loud as earlier. Some people sat in small groups, still talking about the incident, while others were simply silent, perhaps still in shock. Yin let out a breath, planning to find an empty seat while ordering a cup of hot chocolate, but her steps halted when her eyes landed on someone sitting alone in the corner of the room. Jungkook. He sat casually, one hand holding a cup of coffee, the other scrolling through his phone. His face was calm, expressionless as usual, but somehow Yin felt there was a kind of calmness in the way he was alone. Without thinking too much, Yin decided to approach and sat in the empty chair across from him. Jungkook glanced briefly, then returned to his phone. But a few seconds later, without lifting his head, he asked, "You feeling better?" Yin smiled warmly, feeling seen. "Yeah, thanks." Jungkook gave a small nod and took another sip of his coffee. There wasn't much conversation after that. They just sat there together, each lost in their own thoughts. Occasionally, Yin glanced at Jungkook, who remained calm, and somehow, his presence made her feel safe. Not long after, a staff member at the yacht approached. Yin immediately ordered a hot chocolate. It didn't take long before her drink arrived. With a cup of hot chocolate in her hand and Jungkook sitting silently across from her, Yin felt like she was resting in the eye of a storm, quiet, but comforting. But that peace didn't last long. The moment was suddenly interrupted when a familiar figure approached them in a rush. Bam Bam. His face looked panicked and worried. Ignoring Jungkook's presence, he bent slightly toward Yin and asked anxiously, "Yin, are you okay? I've been looking for you." But Yin just glanced at him, her expression cold and flat. "I'm fine," she said quietly but firmly. "Jungkook helped me earlier." It was as if Bam Bam had just realized the man sitting with her was Jungkook. He turned and saw Jungkook still sitting calmly, eyes on his phone as if Bam Bam's presence meant nothing. Cold and indifferent, like he was a ghost. Bam Bam turned back to Yin, face full of guilt. "I'm sorry, I didn't get the chance." Too late, Yin cut him off quickly, her tone still just as cold. Bam Bam froze. "I can't accept it, Bam," Yin continued, her voice softer but clear. "You chose to help your childhood friend, Mji." Her eyes stared directly at Bam Bam, who now looked uneasy. "I regret it," she went on. "Regret accepting your love. Regret wasting 6 months dating a guy who prioritizes his old friend over his own girlfriend." "Yin, that's not what I meant." "I don't want to waste any more time," Yin cut in again. "I've been patient enough. I won't give you the choice between me or her, because I'm stepping away on my own." Then, Yin looked at him sharply. "Starting now, we're done. We're no longer dating." Bam Bam's eyes widened, his heart sank. Right in front of his longtime rival, Jungkook, Yin ended their relationship without mercy, his pride shattered. "Yin, please try to understand. Minji's been my best friend since we were kids. That's exactly why you should have known your boundaries," Yin replied coolly. "But from the start, I've seen it. Mji doesn't see you as just a friend. She wants more. And if you can't keep that boundary, then just go ahead and date her. Marry her. For all I care." Bam Bam fell silent, unsure what to say. Yin stood up, ready to leave. "If you came here just to ruin my mood, congrats. You did it," she said sharply. "I was finally calm sitting here, but you showed up and wrecked it again." Bam Bam tried to follow her, but Yin turned around immediately. "Don't follow me," she said firmly. "We're done. And one more thing." Yin stared at him with cold eyes. "I regret ever saying yes to your confession, so don't make me regret it even more by sticking around." For a few seconds, time seemed to stop. Bam Bam stood frozen, chest tight, unable to say anything. Yin's words were too sharp, and too blunt, cutting through any excuse he might have prepared. Meanwhile, Jungkook still sat calmly in his seat, slowly rotating his coffee cup. He had listened to the entire drama with no real reaction until one low, disgusted word escaped his lips. "Hypocrite." Bam Bam turned instantly. "What's that supposed to mean?" Jungkook looked at him briefly, then back to his cup. "You say you love your girlfriend, but when she needed you most, you chose someone else. That's not love. That's just bullshit." The tension in the air thickened. Jungkook's words weren't loud, but they hit hard. If you really cared, you shouldn't have had to think twice. Your first instinct should have been to save your girlfriend over anyone else, no matter the reason, Jungkook continued coldly. So don't act all regretful now. Bam Bam stood frozen, unable to defend himself. Without another word, he turned and left. Jungkook remained calm, sipping his coffee again, and for the first time that night, he felt a strange satisfaction, watching Bam Bam fall apart. Meanwhile, outside, Yin stood alone by the railing, staring at the vast night ocean that stretched out before her. The sea breeze blew gently, tussling her hair slightly. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself down. Her emotions were a mess: disappointment, anger, sadness, regret, and confusion, all tangled into one. It felt suffocating, yet at the same time, strangely relieving. At least now, she didn't have to pretend to be okay in front of Bam Bam anymore. She hugged herself, trying to keep warm while holding in her frustration. But suddenly, without a word, someone draped a jacket over her shoulders. Warm, thick, and the scent, familiar. A masculine fragrance she'd caught a hint of earlier, one that made her heartbeat subtly change its rhythm. Yin turned. Jungkook. He stood beside her with his usual blank expression, as if nothing had happened. But his eyes lingered on Yin for a second, just enough to make sure she was okay. If you keep spacing out like this, he said coolly, don't blame anyone if some jerk pushes you back into the ocean. You might drown again, for the second time. His tone was sharp and sarcastic, but Yin didn't feel hurt at all. Instead, a small smile tugged at her lips, and she let out a quiet chuckle. If I fall again, Yin replied casually, you'd save me again, wouldn't you? Jungkook rolled his eyes, but a faint smile betrayed his amusement. Keep dreaming. If it happens again, saving you won't be free this time, he said. I'll ask for payment. They laughed. It wasn't a loud, carefree laugh, but enough to lift a little of the weight from Yin's chest. After a few seconds of silence, Jungkook glanced at her and asked, this time more gently, are you really okay? After the breakup just now? Yin's laughter vanished. So did her smile. She looked down briefly, then met Jungkook's eyes with a half-hearted gaze, as if she didn't want to talk about it. But in the end, she spoke, her voice low and laced with bitterness. Upset, angry, obviously. She sighed, not just at Mji, but more at Bam Bam. Why? Jungkook asked softly. Because maybe Mji was trying to get close to him, yeah, but Bam Bam should have known his limits, Yin said firmly. He was my boyfriend, not hers, and yet he still chose to help Mji first, without even thinking about me still floating in the water. That's not just a misunderstanding. To me, that's betrayal. After that, he even stayed with Mji without caring whether I was still drowning or had already been saved. And that hurt more, because it meant that the moment Mji was in danger, Bam Bam couldn't think of anyone else but her. That alone said everything. Jungkook stayed quiet, listening without interrupting. The sea breeze blew again, and beneath the dark night sky, Yin finally spoke the truth. She had been holding inside, not crying, not falling apart. She was strong, and this time, someone was truly there beside her. Suddenly, Jungkook smirked while staring at the ocean in front of them, then glanced at Yin. Still mad until now? He asked casually as if talking about something trivial. That question clearly provoked a reaction from Yin. She immediately turned her head, eyes glaring at Jungkook. Of course I'm mad, Yin snapped. And now that Bam Bam and I broke up, I'm sure Mji is thrilled. I can already picture her smug face. She took a deep breath, trying to hold back the emotions bubbling up again. I feel like I lost, you know? She continued, her voice starting to shake. To Mji, I must look so pathetic right now. Jungkook listened quietly before asking again, more seriously this time. Still love Bam Bam? Yin fell silent. The question stung, but she didn't avoid it. After a few seconds, she answered softly. Yes, but she turned toward the ocean, her voice sounding flatter. Love just isn't enough. That feeling doesn't matter anymore when the person can't protect it. I still can't forgive him. Jungkook nodded slowly as if he understood. Then, with a calm but meaningful tone, he said, in that case, want revenge? Yin immediately turned, her brows furrowed. What? Jungkook looked at her, now with a serious yet slightly mischievous gaze. I said, do you want revenge? Jungkook. Relax, he cut in quickly then smirked. If you do, I'm willing to help. Yin grew more confused. Meanwhile, Jungkook leaned against the railing, now able to look directly at Yin's face while occasionally glancing at the gently rolling ocean. His voice was calm but serious. Want to be my girlfriend? He said out of the blue. Yin was stunned, whipping her head toward him. What? Or better yet, my fiancé, Jungkook added casually as if it were nothing out of the ordinary. Yin's eyes widened. What are you even talking about, Jungkook? I mean it, be my fiancé. What do you say? Yin stared in disbelief. Fiancé? Jungkook nodded slightly. Yeah, might as well go big. I enjoyed watching Bam Bam fall apart earlier. And if he finds out you're dating his enemy me, he'll totally lose it. Jungkook stared at the rolling waves like there was nothing strange about what he had just proposed. You know he and I have never gotten along, so this would be a nice bonus for me, pissing him off while also saving my own skin. Yin still didn't speak, just stared at Jungkook's face, which looked way too calm for someone suggesting a fake engagement. Jungkook continued, and about me. Lately, my family's been pressuring me to get serious with a girl. Otherwise, they'll keep trying to arrange marriages. Just last week, I had to meet two different girls. It's exhausting, and none of them are my type. Yin frowned. You don't have a girlfriend? Jungkook shook his head. I used to, but we broke up a year ago. She was selfish and couldn't understand my situation. We argued a lot. So yeah, breaking up was better than constantly fighting. Yin looked down, thinking deeply. Jungkook's words made sense, and his offer, strange and crazy as it was tempting. At the very least, she could appear strong, not like a sad girl abandoned by her boyfriend for someone else. And judging from how he spoke, Jungkook wasn't messing around. He had been honest from the start. No sweet promises, no pretending. At least Yin appreciated that more than Bam Bam, who claimed to love her but ended up hurting her. Yin bit her lip, thinking hard, but the image of Minji's smug face and the pitying looks she might receive after her breakup with Bam Bam made her chest tighten again. She didn't want to look defeated. And maybe, with a little courage, she could flip the whole situation. Jungkook tilted his head, giving her that signature smirk. You've got until tomorrow morning to decide, but if you say yes now, I'll call my mom and cancel the blind date scheduled for next week. Yin let out a soft sigh, but the corners of her lips lifted slightly. You're really serious about this, huh? Jungkook shrugged. I'm just giving you an option. You need a rebound. I need protection. Win-win. Yin finally let out a soft sigh, looking at Jungkook with slightly furrowed brows. But why me? Out of all the girls in the world, why did you offer this to me? Jungkook turned to her with his usual flat expression, then calmly answered, because in terms of looks and family background, there's no problem with you. Yin frowned slightly, a bit confused by the straightforward answer. You're beautiful, Jungkook continued with a blank face, making Yin fall silent. And your family, clearly not ordinary people. The daughter of a successful automotive businessman in Korea. My parents definitely wouldn't object if they found out I was close to you. And as for your personality, Jungkook turned his gaze briefly to the sea, then back at Yin. From the way you talked about your relationship with Bam Bam earlier, it's obvious you're not the selfish type. You've been very patient, always understanding him. But the one with issues was him. He shrugged casually. So, you're my type. Good looks, and an easygoing personality. Nothing complicated. Yin scoffed, trying to hold back a grin. Sounds like you did a full background check before you rescued me from the sea. Jungkook quickly turned to her, clearly not accepting the accusation. Hey, don't twist it. I saved you because you were the closest one to me at that moment. You were the one drowning. You should be grateful. Yin held back a laugh, putting on an innocent face. Are you sure you didn't plan this from the start? Jungkook rolled his eyes. If you and Bam Bam hadn't broken up today, I wouldn't have made this offer. That makes sense, right? And your breakup wasn't because of me. It was your own problem. Yin chuckled softly, then looked down while smiling. Yeah, I get it. I was just testing you. Jungkook sighed, then looked at her with a mix of confusion and mild irritation. What kind of test was that? I've been honest enough already. Yin looked at him and gave a small nod. And that's what made me consider it. Because you've been straightforward from the start. The night breeze blew again, making a strand of Yin's hair fall over her face. Jungkook watched for a moment before gently reaching out to tuck the strand behind her ear. So, he murmured softly, his voice gentler this time. Should I tell my mom to cancel the blind date next week? Yin stared at him in silence, her heart beating, not from nervousness, but because for the first time in a long while, she felt seen, considered. And even though this all started with heartbreak, maybe, this wasn't a bad choice. Tomorrow morning, Yin whispered. I'll give you my answer tomorrow morning. Jungkook gave a small smile, then nodded. Okay, I'll wait. That night, neither Yin nor Jungkook could sleep. Both were lost in their own thoughts about decisions, possibilities, and the consequences of what they had discussed. Morning came. The sun was still shyly peeking over the horizon when the clock struck 6. The surroundings were still quiet. Their friends were all still sound asleep in the yacht's bedrooms. Yin stepped out quietly, wearing a light sweater. The early morning air was cold, making her breath visible in the form of a white mist. And there, in the same spot as last night, she saw Jungkook standing, facing the sea. Jungkook, his eyes staring blankly ahead, a can of warm coffee in his hand, and the tired look on his face was obvious. But he remained there as if waiting for something, or someone. Yin smiled faintly. She walked slowly toward Jungkook. The sound of her footsteps made him turn around. Jungkook gave her a small smile. Morning. Yin nodded, standing beside him. Morning. They stood in silence for a moment, accompanied only by the sound of waves and the soft breeze. Then Yin turned to look at Jungkook's sleepy face. You waiting for my answer? Jungkook sipped his coffee slowly, then looked back at her. Just couldn't wait. Wanted to know if you'd reject me or not. Yin smiled, then gave a small nod. My answer is yes. Jungkook was silent for a few seconds. Yes as in accepting or rejecting? Yes, I want to. Let's date. But to start with, let's just be in a relationship first before getting engaged. Jungkook didn't respond right away. He just stared at her, like he was trying to make sure he wasn't dreaming after staying up all night. After a few seconds, a faint smile formed on his face. So, should I tell my mom to cancel my blind date next week? Yin smiled and nodded. With blazing enthusiasm, Jungkook immediately pulled out his phone and called his mother. His face looked more alive than it did a few minutes ago. Even the sleepiness that had lingered in his eyes had vanished completely. Mom, he exclaimed as soon as the call connected. I'm not going on that blind date next week. I already have a girlfriend. The voice on the other end sounded groggy and hoarse. Clearly just woke up. Jungkook, his mother replied hesitantly. Do you realize it's only 6 in the morning? Or are you possessed by a sea ghost or something? Don't mess around. Aren't you at the beach right now? Yin, who was standing beside him, immediately stifled a laugh, covering her mouth so the sound wouldn't escape. I'm serious, Mom. I really mean it. Jungkook insisted. I really have a girlfriend now. I confessed to her last night and this morning she said yes. His mom sighed deeply, clearly unconvinced. If you're not joking, prove it. Video call me right now. Jungkook raised an eyebrow challengingly, then switched the voice call to a video call. As soon as his mother's face appeared on the screen, Jungkook quickly pointed the camera toward Yin, who looked startled and lowered her head slightly, nervous. But his mother's face lit up instantly when she saw Yin. Oh, so this is the girl? Wow, she's so pretty, she said excitedly. Hi, I'm Jungkook's mom. I'm so happy to finally see you. Yin looked a little shy, but still responded warmly with a smile. Hello, Auntie. I'm Yin. It's nice to meet you too, even if it's just through the screen. Wow, you're so beautiful and you seem polite too. When can you come to visit our house? Let's have a meal together, so we can talk more. I've been so curious. Sure, Auntie. I'd love to visit and spend some time with you. After a warm and enthusiastic short chat, the video call ended. Jungkook lowered his phone and looked at Yin with a wide smile, like a kid who had just received a gift. They looked at each other and chuckled softly together. You don't regret it? Jungkook asked gently, his tone more serious this time as if he truly needed to make sure. Yin shook her head slowly. No, I don't regret it. She looked directly into Jungkook's eyes, her expression calm. Let's just take it as it comes. I don't want to think too far ahead, but at least, I want to try. Let's see later, whether we can truly fall in love or not. Jungkook smiled, this time more softly than before. He knew this wasn't a perfect beginning, but from the way Yin spoke, from her courage to face the unknown, he knew they were both ready. Unbeknownst to them, a pair of eyes was watching from a distance, full of suspicion. Mji. She had initially only intended to go to the restroom, but her steps halted when she saw Yin and Jungkook standing together at the edge of the yacht. They looked close, too close. Jungkook, who was usually indifferent, was now even chuckling softly while looking at Yin. Meanwhile, Yin, who had just broken up with Bam Bam yesterday afternoon, looked more alive than usual, smiling and showing no signs of sadness at all. Mji narrowed her eyes, not believing what she was seeing. Weird, didn't they break up just yesterday? She thought. How can Yin be so close to Jungkook already? Shouldn't she still be crying her heart out? Curiosity and frustration consumed her. Mji walked closer, her steps slow but deliberate. Her expression turned sour, her eyes scrutinizing Yin as if trying to uncover something shady. Once she was close enough, Mji spoke in a tone that tried to sound casual, but there was a clear sharpness to it. Wow, cozying up early in the morning, huh? You moved on really fast, Yin. Both Yin and Jungkook turned their heads. Yin looked slightly surprised but remained composed. Jungkook raised an eyebrow, not bothering to hide his annoyance at Minji's presence. Mji smirked at Yin. Just broke up with Bam Bam yesterday, and now you're all smiles with Jungkook. Didn't expect you to bounce back that fast. Yin held her breath. That was clearly not a compliment, but she refused to take the bait. I just don't want to drown for too long, Yin replied calmly, still smiling. Besides, there's no point crying over someone who doesn't know how to appreciate. And just so you know, Jungkook's the one who saved me yesterday when I fell into the sea. Jungkook smirked slightly, glancing at Yin with admiration. Meanwhile, Mji didn't look pleased with the answer but tried to mask it with a brief laugh. Wow, what a cool comeback. But aren't you afraid of looking like a girl who's desperate and instantly searching for a replacement? Jungkook finally spoke up. His tone was flat, but it cut deep. Mji, I think you're trying a little too hard to get involved in other people's business this early in the morning. If you need to go to the restroom, just go. No need to stir up drama. Minji's eyes widened slightly, surprised that Jungkook stood up for her. I was just concerned. She just broke up yesterday. But it sounds like you're trying to get attention in front of me, you know? Jungkook retorted with a sharp smile. Isn't it enough that you always try to get Bam Bam's attention? Jungkook was confident enough to say that he was one of the most popular guys on campus, often rejecting confessions from many girls. So, if Yin wants to be happy again, that's her right. And I also have the right to choose who I want to spend time with. Mji was silent. For a moment, she had no comeback. Her eyes darted between Yin and Jungkook, and it became more obvious that the two of them were now on the same side, close and comfortable with each other. Finally, Mji let out a heavy sigh, then turned around and walked away briskly, leaving the two of them at the edge of the yacht. Yin looked at Jungkook. You did that on purpose to annoy her, didn't you? Jungkook shrugged casually. Not on purpose, but if she got annoyed, well, that's a bonus. Yin let out a small laugh, feeling relieved and amused at once. And even though she didn't yet know where this relationship was headed, one thing was certain, she wasn't alone anymore. 1 year later, in a luxurious office that now felt suffocating, Bam Bam sat with a flushed face. His jaw clenched, eyes fixed sharply on his phone screen, which was still lit up, showing the group chat of their college alumni. Earlier that day, he had opened the chat just to check some casual updates, but what he found instead sent his emotions into a spiral. A digital wedding invitation was clearly displayed on the screen. Park Yin and Jeon Jungkook invite you to attend our wedding in 2 weeks. Location. The invitation was beautifully designed, featuring a pre-wedding photo of Yin smiling gracefully in a simple white dress, while Jungkook stood behind her, hugging her with a gaze full of love. Bam Bam couldn't believe his eyes. His fingers immediately typed Yin's name into the social media search bar. Within seconds, he was met with a stream of photos he had never seen before. Yin and Jungkook laughing together, dining in cafes, traveling, and even one photo where Jungkook held Yin's hand with the caption, "Grateful for every second with you." Bam Bam gritted his teeth. He had known that since their breakup a year ago, Yin had grown closer to Jungkook. Some friends even teased that they were dating, but Bam Bam always dismissed it. He thought it was just a baseless rumor. There was no way Yin would actually fall into the arms of his enemy. Jeon Jungkook, the arrogant guy who used to compete with him in everything, academics, sports, even popularity. Even their fathers were sworn enemies in the mafia world. But now, they were getting married. Damn it. Overwhelmed by emotion, Bam Bam threw his phone onto the table. It bounced and almost hit the floor. He stood up and began pacing the room. His chest was tight, not just because Yin was getting married, but because she was marrying his rival. Yin had chosen Jungkook, and that hurt more than any rejection he'd ever experienced. What does she even see in him, huh? He muttered angrily, slamming his fist onto the desk hard enough to make it shake. He's just an arrogant, cold jerk. Why Yin? Why him? Anger, jealousy, and wounded pride mixed into a storm inside him. Bam Bam felt like a loser. He had lost Yin, and worse, he had lost to the person he hated the most. But beneath all that anger, there was a silent, gnawing regret he couldn't ignore. If only he had appreciated Yin more back then. If only he hadn't been so caught up with Mji. But now, all of that was just if only. In 2 weeks, Yin would be married. And no, he wouldn't be the groom.